Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Rachel Burgess-Burnett, Deputy Commissioner here, Department of Family and Support Services, Children's Services Division. And I want to thank you for joining us today for this webinar regarding our launch of our RFP 2. We're glad you're here, hoping that you will be able to get the information that you need to successfully get your application through the process. But at the end, you'll also have some information on what you might need to do if you have any questions or any technical issues. So we're going to try to guide you through that today, but just know that there'll be opportunities going forward if something comes up. And so what we're going to do today is it's a brief agenda, but a lot of a jam-packed webinar. So introductions here again, I'm Rachel Burgess-Burnett. I have with me
Rima Malhotra
and Julia Talbot.
And Tiffany Junkins is going to join as well shortly. And so what we're going to be going over is Chicago Early Learning, making sure that everybody understands what Chicago Early Learning is and how we got here. We'll talk a little bit about the Children's Services Division, get into everything that you need to know about RFP 2. And then, of course, this is a live webinar, so there will be opportunities for questions as well. So why are we launching this RFP? We had one that went out and it launched on April 2nd, 2019, closed May 15th. After we did a high-level view of what we had received, what we did see were some service gaps. And one of the things that we are wanting to always ensure is that we are looking forward, making sure that we know what's happening in every one of our communities and across all of our funding streams. And so for that reason, in that high-level view, we're here today talking to you about RFP 2. Because what we want to do is make sure that we're able to get RFPs in that will allow us, we hope, to fill those service gaps that we saw in our initial review.
So, good morning, this is Rima. I am going to kind of continue from here. So you heard a little bit in terms of why we're doing it, and there are a couple more slides to respond to any possible questions you may have around the RFP 2. So the question about should I apply to this RFP even if I did not apply to the first RFP? So yes, absolutely. If your agency is able to provide slot capacity by December 1st, 2019, then you should apply for those slots through this second RFP opportunity. But be aware that award recommendations will first be made to the agencies that applied to the first RFP. So based on community need and availability of funding after proposals for the first RFP are evaluated and awards are determined, then proposals for the second RFP may be evaluated and award recommendations may be made. So again, just to reiterate first, and I want to talk a little bit about the timing around this. As you know, April 2nd was the first RFP, launched May 15th at noon was the deadline for submission. All of those proposals are now with evaluators. We launched the second RFP on June 24th, and it is due July 15th by noon, and we will be making awards for the first RFP before we view the scores of the second RFP. So the second RFP is specifically only if we determine that there are gaps from the first RFP proposal. So the question, if I already submitted a proposal through the first RFP and our agency is able to expand slot capacity, should I respond to the second RFP? So yes, if your agency is able to expand, again, really thinking in the timeline, is able to expand slot capacity by December 1st, 2019, then you should apply for that expansion only through the second RFP. So your response should include all the information required under the second RFP. Since responses to the first and second RFPs will be reviewed separately, Your responses to the second RFP should not cross-reference your response to the first RFP. And again, please note, if your response to the second RFP includes slots covered by your response to the first RFP, then during the second RFP review process, the duplicate slots will not be evaluated. All award recommendations for the first RFP will be made before award recommendations for the second RFP are made. Again, if your response to the second RFP includes slots covered by your response to the first RFP, then during the second RFP review process, the duplicate slots will not be considered. Will there be any substantial changes to the second RFP compared to the first RFP that was released on April 2nd? No, there are not any substantial changes to the second RFP other than clarifying language, which was done through previous RFP's addendum process. And the second RFP has the same requirements and requests for services as in the previous RFP. When will decisions be made for the first RFP and the second RFP? And I talked about this a little bit in terms of sequence, but now we're going to talk a little bit in terms of timing and dates. So DFSS currently expects to make awards for the first RFP by the first full week in August. If applicable, awards under the second RFP would be made by the third full week in August. And again, please note that this schedule is subject to change. So before we move on, I just want to introduce somebody who's walked in the room and has joined us. I know that Rachel talked about Tiffany, but I want Tiffany to be able to go ahead and introduce herself, and then we can move forward.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Junkins, and I'm one of the managers here at the Department of Family and Support Services, Children's Services Division, and I'm partnering with Rima Malhotra with this whole RFP process. So we're excited that you're on and you're able to get the valuable information that we're going to be providing today around the requirements of the program as well as the budget.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. So what you see here is the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services program divisions, and they are 8, I think, 8, one of which is Children's Services. You see there's Youth Services, Domestic Violence, Workforce, Veteran Services, Homeless Services, Senior Services, and Human Services Delivery. And a couple of them I know are combined into one division, but the services are separate, so we just wanted to highlight that. So we're going to talk just briefly about DFSS's strategic framework that was launched in 2016. And it has a refreshed mission and department-wide priorities. And these connect directly to our priorities and our goals that have been included in the RFP. So the mission for Department of Family and Support Services is to work with community partners, connect Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. And the priorities are, as you see, deliver, collaborate, inform, and steward. So deliver and support high-quality, innovative, and comprehensive services that empower clients to thrive, collaborate with community partners, sister agencies, and public officials on programs and policies that improve Chicagoans' lives and advance systemic change, inform the public of resources available to them through DFSS and its community partners, and lastly, steward Department of Family Support Services resources responsibly and effectively. So part of Chicago Children's Services Division is part of the larger Chicago Early Learning. So the City of Chicago has made a commitment to provide children across the city with access to high quality early learning through a comprehensive citywide system of school and community-based programs known as Chicago Early Learning. And to get to this point, the city is engaged in 2 major policy shifts to facilitate access to and improve the quality of early learning services in Chicago. So one was the consolidation of funding for community-based early learning programs, and some of you on the webinar may have been directly kind of experienced that consolidation. So it went from community-based early learning programs that were part of Chicago Public Schools, shifted to the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services in 2017. And the aim was to provide more cohesive, cost-effective administration of Chicago's funding for high-quality early childhood educational programming outside of schools. And so for community-based organizations before consolidation, 75% of them experienced kind of dual funders and dual monitors and dual reporting expectations. And so this was an effort to kind of streamline all of that, simplify for agencies, and also consolidate the administration so that we could have access to increased funding to go directly out to community-based organizations. With the implementation of the consolidated funding model, the City of Chicago is able to make investments in Birth to 5 system while scaling full-day programming for 4-year-olds to deliver universal pre-K in both school and community-based settings. So we get to Children's Services Division, which is part of Chicago Early Learning. DFSS's Children's Services Division administers funding to all community-based Chicago Early Learning programs. DFSSCSD seeks to ensure that these programs offer comprehensive and high-quality services for all enrolled children and families. CSD's efforts to build a strong system of services are guided by the following 3 priorities. So 1, to maximize access to high-quality early learning programs. This is done by matching investments to the needs of local communities and having the goal to reduce the barriers to entry for children and families. Improve the comprehensiveness and quality of early learning across all programs to ensure that children and families' needs are met. And lastly, create a strong system of service providers by increasing support and reducing the administrative burden for community-based providers of early learning. So those were the 3 priorities that kind of have gotten us here. And then the goal of this RFP specifically is to enhance and expand highly effective services to vulnerable families with children ages birth to 5. For Chicago Early Learning community-based programs to provide early learning experiences that support children's development based on their individual trajectory across 4 developmental domains. And you'll hear this a lot through this webinar: social, emotional, physical, language, and cognitive, with the goal of supporting their success in school and in life. And to build a system that allows us to work together toward a clearly articulated goal of having more of Chicago's children enter kindergarten ready to succeed. So being ready to succeed in kindergarten is the most immediate outcome we have for children who've participated in Chicago Early Learning programs. So based on the desired outcome for Chicago's children to be on track and ready for kindergarten, this request for proposal aims to achieve the following 4 goals. So we talked a little bit, just wanted to say, of the overall DFSS mission, and then the priorities for CSD, and then we talked a little bit about why we're putting this RFP out, the goal of the RFP. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the 4 goals that we're really aiming for through this proposal. 1, to deliver high-quality learning environments and experiences that promote children's growth, development, and kindergarten readiness across 4 developmental domains: social, emotional, physical, language, and cognitive. Engage and support families by providing them with meaningful ways to interact with their children's learning and development and attain their own personal goals. To provide programs with the foundation and supports necessary for strong program design management and monitoring systems that contribute to sustained quality programming. And to employ a professionally prepared and adequately compensated workforce to achieve the desired outcomes for children and their families. And I just want to say before we go to the next slide that these 4 goals all have, what we're looking for is not checking the boxes, but meaningful experiences. So for example, in a classroom, it's not just the physical environment and the materials that are offered for children to engage with, but also the interactions of the teachers, between teachers, and then as we move on to the next one, interactions with families to really support them in their role as a parent and in trying to achieve their own hopes and dreams for themselves. And so that kind of really is what we're looking for, is how programs are able to achieve these goals.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the different funding streams. So the Chicago Early Learning programs are built on 2 funding streams. One is our federal Head Start and our state Early Childhood Block Grant. And here are their associated requirements. So for the federal Head Start program, it includes Head Start serving 3 to 5-year-olds. Another program within the federal Head Start is Early Head Start, and it's for children birth to 3 years old, and it includes pregnant women. And our Early Head Start Child Care Partnership program, it's for children birth to 3-year-olds. Now our state funding. Early Childhood Block Grant includes our Preschool for All, or PSA, for 3 to 5-year-olds, and also our Prevention Initiative, or PI, for birth to 3-year-olds, and it includes pregnant moms, pregnant women as well. So the opportunity to blend federal and state funding in center-based programs will support the implementation of quality components and help programs serve families with the greatest need, while reducing the eligibility barriers of relying on state child care funding as much. So program types and service delivery models. How can you operate these programs that we're talking about? You can operate them in center-based care. You can operate them in charter schools and private schools, family child care homes, and home-based and home visiting. So a little bit about the center-based care. Early childhood education and care is offered in an Illinois state licensed facility with separate classrooms or areas for distinct age groups, birth through 5. Comprehensive services are offered, including family engagement, health, and nutrition, and much more. The service delivery occurs at a center-based facility. The other option could be a charter school or private school. Early childhood education is offered in a licensed, exempt facility with separate classrooms or area for distinct preschool groups. Comprehensive services are offered, including family engagement, health and nutrition, and much more. The service delivery occurs at the school. Charter schools or private schools seeking to align their pre-K programming with their school charter or elementary school funding authorized by Chicago Public Schools should contact CPS for further guidance. Family child care homes. Early childhood education and care is offered in an Illinois licensed home for children birth to 5, with comprehensive services offered, including family engagement, health and nutrition, and much more. The service delivery occurs in a licensed child care home. DFSS supports family child care homes through networks established with Head Start and Early Head Start delegate agencies. Individual family child care homes should seek becoming a part of the network that meets the specific community needs. So then we have home base and home visiting. Early childhood development programs working with parents to support them in understanding child development and their role as a parent using one of DFSS's approved evidence-based models for implementation. In addition, the program works with parents to facilitate parents' ability to set and achieve goals for themselves and focus on their own development. Comprehensive services are offered. The service delivery is mostly in the parent's home, except for socializations and parent meetings outside of the home. So this is a way so that you can see the programs that we just talked about and the different models in which they can be represented. So the ages served in the programs model, this is kind of giving you a diagram of category A, our birth to 3-year-olds, as well as category B, our 3- and 4-year-olds. So in the blue, hopefully it's blue on your screen, but in blue, where it lists under funding to your left-hand side, prevention initiatives. So if we were to take that column, and then let's look down, right? So the funding is that it's prevention initiative, but if you look right below it and follow it down, it can be offered, right, in a center-based setting, and it can also be offered in a home-based or home visiting setting. Next to that would be our Early Head Start. Early Head Start, the service delivery model, it can be offered in a center-based program as well as our home-based or home visiting model. But it also can be offered in a family child care home setting. Next to that would be the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership. Again, we're going down. And so it can be offered in 2 ways, center-based as well as family child care homes. So it's important that you know how these different programs and funding streams can be implemented and services can be delivered. Now we're going to go ahead and go over to category B, which is in green. And so the first funding stream is the PSA, our Preschool for All. And if you follow it down, PSA can be offered in a center-based setting as well as charter schools and private schools. The other funding stream is the Head Start in category B, and it can be offered in center-based as well as charter schools, private schools. It can be offered in a home-based setting, home visiting, and it also can be offered as a family child care home model. So for this RFP, applicants must submit separate applications for category A, birth to 3-year-olds, and a different application using a different email and username for category B, for 3s and 4s. No more than 1 proposal should be submitted for each category. Agencies are not required to apply for both category A and B for consideration. It's really up to you and how you see yourselves in this birth to 5 world. So our target population. So eligible program participants of the Chicago Early Learning Programs include income and categorically eligible children under age 5 and their families and pregnant women living in the city of Chicago. So here are some areas to focus, right? Families earning below or at federal poverty level with our federal funding. Families earning up to 200% of the federal poverty level as set by ISB. Families experiencing homelessness. Families with foster children. Families who qualify for temporary assistance for needy families, TANF. And families who qualify for Social Security Disability Income, SSDI. Programs must demonstrate that they have selection criteria in place that allows them to prioritize the most vulnerable families among the eligible service population. So proposals that support the following special subpopulations will be given priority. Immigrant, New American, and undocumented populations, pregnant women and parenting teens, mothers who have prenatal challenges during homelessness, substance abuse, educational barriers, or other factors, English language learners, children with disabilities and medical conditions, children and families experiencing homelessness, and families with incarcerated parents. So DFSS is especially interested in funding programs that are structured in the following ways. And I'm going to go ahead and let Rima talk about this slide because she's so amazing with this one.
So that's right. So we're especially interested in funding programs that are structured where a site-based continuity of relationship model is implemented. So agencies are encouraged to design programs along the continuity of relationship model where children and teaching teams stay together from enrollment of the child and family through transition out to either preschool, which would be the 3-year model, or kindergarten, which is the 5-year model from birth through age 5. And so if, let's say, you haven't done, you are implementing continuity of relationship, but only the 3-year model, maybe you want to try the 5-year model. That is something that maybe you include in your proposal for something that is different, and also really focusing on the importance of relationships for children and families, children with teachers and teachers with families, but also between children. We're also really interested in funding collaborative models. And so agencies are encouraged to design program models in which there's blending of at least 2 funding sources to support a family's enrollment. Either a family is enrolled in Head Start and Preschool for All, or Head Start and Child Care Assistance Program, or Early Head Start and Prevention Initiative as examples. We're also really interested in funding partner models, so partnership subrecipient model. So DFSS acknowledges there's strong rationale for the Head Start, Early Head Start delegates to implement services through the partner model, and will continue to encourage successful partnerships within the Chicago early learning system. Partners are defined as subrecipients. A subrecipient is a legally recognized entity that receives a contract for the purpose of providing goods and services as specified in a written and signed contractual agreement. Agencies intending to establish partnerships for Head Start, Early Head Start, and Early Head Start Child Care Partnership must follow the guidelines of the Partnership Framework Implementation Guide in Appendix A of this RFP. Partners must indicate in their budget template the receipt of federal funds to support programming through a delegate agency. So encourage to blend in center-based model. We started talking about that in the previous slide a little bit. So for center-based models, DFSS will prioritize proposals that demonstrate a funding structure that includes the blending of state and the Early Childhood Block Grant and the Head Start, Early Head Start funding to maximize city-administered funding. Applicants are encouraged to apply across all funding streams to maximize the opportunity to blend. To meet this priority, the following can be noted. 1, applicants applying to be Preschool for All and Prevention Initiative delegates can also apply to be a Head Start, Early Head Start delegate, or secure a Head Start, Early Head Start partnership with a Head Start, Early Head Start delegate. So current or those who are applying to be PFA and PI delegates can either apply to be a direct delegate or apply to be a partner of a delegate. Number 2, applicants applying to be Head Start, Early Head Start delegates can apply to be Preschool for All and PI delegates. Please note there are no partnerships allowed for PFA and PI funding. So that opportunity is only available to apply directly to DFSS. So we're just going to kind of go through Chicago Early Learning Standards and key revisions. So we want to talk about that. DFSS has revised the Chicago Early Learning Standards to ensure all delegate agencies maintain compliance with funder regulations as well as implement high-quality programming. While these revisions continue to support the implementation of the consolidated funding model through DFSS, the City of Chicago is committed to ensuring adequate time and technical assistance for adequate implementation of these requirements. So the new requirements can be found in the RFP pages 20 to 22. Programs should show a plan and a willingness to implement these quality standards, indicating specific supports that will be necessary for each site or agency. So some key changes to the Chicago Early Learning Standards and requirements have been made in accordance with. So the specific changes you'll find as indicated here in the RFP, beginning on page 20. But we want to ensure that you understand that all of these changes have been made in accordance with the Chicago Early Learning Consolidation Plan to align quality standards across funding streams as appropriate to support child outcomes and school readiness. In alliance with changes to the Head Start program performance standards with the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards and with Accelerate Gold Circle of Quality Standards.
So,
you want to do it? Okay, so I'm going to toggle it back to Tiffany.
Yay, pass the baton. All right. So we have some guidance for our applicants for Category A. So please note the following funding stream restrictions. In order to receive Prevention Initiative funding, an applicant must directly apply to this RFP. In order to receive Early Head Start or Early Head Start Child Care Partnership funding, an applicant can either apply to this RFP or partner with the delegate agency that applies to this RFP. Applicants are encouraged to identify delegate partner relationships for federal funding and note this in the narrative response and budget. So again, I just want to reiterate that Prevention Initiative funding through Category A can only be achieved through a direct application from a respondent. So Category A, birth to 3-year-olds. Applicants can apply for Early Head Start. You can operate Early Head Start in a home-based setting, home visiting, or a center-based program. You can also operate Early Head Start in a family child care home. And what about our Early Head Start Child Care Partnership? It can be operated in a center-based setting, a family child care home. And our Prevention Initiative program can be operated in a center-based setting, as well as our home-based home visiting model. So there it goes. So Category A, implementation of the center-based program or the center-based model. So center-based model can be operated by these 3 different programs: Prevention Initiative, Early Head Start Child Care Partnership. It's really just a different way of looking at what we just looked at on the previous slide.
Repetitiveness, yes.
Yeah. And so then the implementation of our home-based model or home visiting, it can be operated using these funding streams and programs, Prevention Initiative and our Early Head Start. And so family child care home, what funding streams can you use there? You can use Early Head Start as well as Early Head Start Child Care Partnership. So important reminders. For center-based and family child care homes, Early Head Start and Early Head Start Child Care Partnership, it cannot be blended together. So you either can have a child who is Early Head Start, or you can have a different child that is Early Head Start CCP, but the same child cannot be both. For a family child care home, Prevention Initiative is not an eligible funding source. For home-based and home visiting, Early Head Start and prevention initiatives cannot be blended together to support the same family. Very important, it cannot. So our guidance for applicants for Category B. So please note that the following funding stream restrictions apply. In order to receive Preschool for All funding, an applicant must directly apply to this RFP. In order to receive Head Start funding, an applicant can either apply to this RFP or partner with the delegate agency that applies to this RFP. Applicants are encouraged to identify delegate partner relationships for federal funding and note this in the narrative response and budget. So to reiterate, our Preschool for All funding, you can only be considered for funding if you apply directly. You cannot receive this through partnerships. So Category B, 3s and 4s. So applicants can apply for under Head Start. You can operate Head Start in a home visiting, home-based model. You can operate a Head Start program in center-based, as well as charter schools and private schools, in addition to family child care homes. So for our Preschool for All program, it can be operated in a center-based setting, charter schools, and private schools. So Category B, again, just a different way of looking at it. So implementation for the full-day center-based model, the Preschool for All is applicable, as well as Head Start and center-based. Implementation of half-day, the center-based model, is only Head Start. So Head Start allows the half-day opportunity, and it's up to your program to make that determination. Implementation of charter school, private school model, you can operate the Preschool for All model, or you can operate the Head Start model. Implementation of home visiting, home-based model is for Head Start. So important reminders, half-day Head Start cannot be blended with PFA, Preschool for All.
So we're going to transition to performance measures, and I will review those with you. So performance measures that we're going to implement for those who are awarded and become part of our program. So one performance measure is design and implement learning environments. So it's about the learning environment. So design and implement learning environments and practices that support children's development across 4 developmental domains, which you've heard before, that have been identified as key to children's kindergarten readiness: social, emotional, physical, language, and cognitive. And so the indicators that we're going to be looking at are agencies' composite score on the class. So agencies must have an average composite score of 4.5 across the class domain, with looking for in each individual domain. You'll see it broken out for 6, 6, and 3. And then in the environmental assessments, the ECHRS, the FICRS, so ECHRS is the Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale, and the FICRS is the Family Child Care Home Environment Rating Scale, and the ITERS is the Infant Toddler Environment Rating Scale. Those assessments will be used in conjunction with class, and we're looking for no single classroom falling below a score of 4. Site leaders to participate in site-based instructional coaching model sessions, and site leaders who participated in site-based instructional coaching demonstrate implementation of coaching indicators outlined by the instructional support service providers. The next measures design and implement programs that support families, and so this is the family engagement piece, and provide them meaningful ways to interact with their children's learning and development and promote homeschool connection. So the indicators will be parent education curriculum implemented with validity, parents as teachers or baby talk, at least. And so for prevention initiative home visiting, we know that there are a couple of other approved parent education curriculum just specifically for that one. At least 80% of all families who enter the program during the year are still enrolled at the end of the program year. So we're looking for consistency of your families across the year. And then center-based and family child care homes, Teaching Strategies Gold Parent Portal is utilized on a regular basis. And then the third performance measure, design and implement a program management and monitoring infrastructure that fully supports quality learning environments and parent and family engagement. And so this really is looking at you as an agency, your program management and monitoring infrastructure. And these indicators are what we're going to look at to evaluate your management systems. So overall average score of 5.0 or higher on the program administration scale. Parent and staff satisfaction surveys demonstrate 85% overall satisfaction and demonstrate growth in areas from previous year. And programs baseline information on the 5 E's and has been, which is an elementary school survey, and we will use the one that's been adapted for the Early Childhood Essentials, is what it's called, survey that assesses effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, supportive environment, and ambitious instruction. And we as in DFSSCSD, will be engaging you around that. So that is not something that delegates have to start on their own. And then lastly, improved and reduced staff turnover rate. So now we're going to transition to budget templates.
Yay! Okay, we're getting excited. We're getting ramped up. Each and every one of you, I am sure.
Everybody loves budget and templates.
Okay, so the good thing about this is all of these different programs and all of these different funding streams you can apply for. We got all of these different program models and funding streams into one budget template. So I know you guys are super excited, just like myself. So I want to talk about the 2 budget templates, though, that you will see in e-procurement. There is a budget template that is for agencies who want to apply for 15 sites or less. So that probably would be most respondents. So this would probably be the one that would be most commonly used. However, if you have aspirations or desires to be a superdelegate and you have more than 15 sites, then there is an alternative budget template just for you, and it is one that goes up to 60 sites. If there is an organization out there who needs more than 60, you need to contact us directly, and we'll make sure that we make those accommodations. So proposed cost in your budget, and when you're thinking about how you're going to be operating your program, all costs, they must be necessary to meet your program goals and objectives. They must be reasonable, and they must be allowable according to the cost principles in the uniform guidance. And they also must be allocable to the grants that we have. So let me tell you a little bit more about the budget templates and the different tabs that you'll see once you get in there. So we have an instructions tab. I'm going to urge everyone to make sure that they're reading those instructions very carefully before you start to navigate throughout the rest of the workbook. The next tab you'll see will be the agency tab. And within the agency tab, it is going to be the opportunity for you to propose your desired program. So the proposed slots and the funding will be represented on the agency tab. The next tab you'll see will be the admin tab. The admin tab is a place for you as an agency to be able to tell us about the administrative costs that you have within your organization. We want to hear and we want to know more about those positions that are within your agencies, and we're expecting for you to represent 100% of those costs under the admin tab for your organization when it comes to those administrative positions. So salaries and benefits, but in addition to that, the non-personnel costs that also support the administration as well. This particular tab is for DFSS analysis only. It will not roll up into anything, so it won't connect to anything within your budget. The other tab is going to be the other sources of funds tab, which is also a DFSS analysis only. But we're interested in knowing more about your organization and knowing about the different funding streams that you have. So not just the ones that you're applying for through the DFSS RFP, but also what about the other sources that you may have. So this is an opportunity for you to disclose and to let us know about the other sources of funds within your program. It does not roll up into anything, so it will not affect the outcome of your overall budget. There is a tab, it's called the Miscellaneous Head Start tab. And so this is for respondents who plan on applying to the Head Start program as being one of the options. If you are, then we encourage you to take a look at this tab, and if there's any supplemental positions that you're interested in and kind of requesting or at least letting us know that there's a need for, there's an opportunity for you to enter a justification for that. Also with parent out-of-town travel, we've been known in the past to kind of give supplemental funding for it. And so we're asking you, if you're interested in parent out-of-town travel, then you tell us exactly why, the justification for it and how much you need. The next tabs that I want to talk about will be the site tabs. And so in the budget that's for up to 15 sites, it will be site 1, site 2, site 3, so on and so forth, up to site 15. So it'll be 15 tabs in there, and we want you to make sure that you are separating each of your sites by geographical location and address. So there is a place for you to make sure that you're separating that. There is a place for you to let us know if it is a directly operated program, if it's a family child care home, if it's a partner or an anticipated partner. And then your home-based programs, they can be grouped according to cluster. There is a tab specifically for the cost roll-up. And so once you start entering all of this information on your site tabs, you're going to notice that this information is all going to roll up to what we call the cost roll-up tab, which pretty much gives us a budget summary for all the program options that you've applied for. And this is actually the tab that you're going to use to enter into e-procurement on your quote lines as well. So, so for category A, there's going to be a budget. And if you're applying for category B, there's also going to be a budget. And those are the numbers that are going to be entered in the iSupplier e-procurement system. There's finally a tab for the narrative section. And this is an opportunity for you guys to get personal with us and tell us more about your program. You're going to only complete the sections in the highlight, as most of the numbers will roll up to the narrative tab. But it really is your opportunity to let us know more about what your intentions are through this process, and if you were to get awarded, the wonderful things that you would do. So the budget template, it is one Excel budget. And so we have category E and category A, if you're applying for 0 to 3 funding for infants and toddlers. And then you can see the different rates that are being proposed in this particular RFP. And so they're there. I don't think I need to go through each one of them, but you can see the differentiations in the different rates for the various programs. Also with category B, if you're applying for 3 to 5 funding for preschool, then you have the different programs and the different models that you can operate from home-based, Head Start, full-day Head Start, half-day Head Start, and also preschool for all. So again, you can see the rates that are applicable to each one of those programs and the variations for the models that are being offered to help you make your decision. So category A and B, you can apply for both 0 to 3 funding and 3 to 5 funding using the same budget template. That's amazing. But then we expect for you to upload, right, each one with each proposal. So if you're going to be submitting for category A, you're going to go ahead and upload that budget template to that quote, okay? And that's going to be one. But then you're going to upload that same budget template, right, that you've completed, right, to category B as well, which would be a different quote. All right, so some of the budget template kind of warning messages I wanted to kind of let you know. We've kind of made this very user-friendly, I believe, whereas we're really kind of calling it out in red. So if you see some red, more than likely it's something that you need to kind of take a step back and, you know, kind of reevaluate. That way you can make some modifications. So one of the warning messages that you could see, positions exceeding the executive level 2 salary cap. So if it's over income, right now the executive level 2 salary cap is $189,600. So anything over that is going to automatically trigger the over income warning message, which means you have to remove the position from the budget. If the budget exceeds the allocated amount, remember, you know, the allocation is really based on your proposal. So I talked about the agency tab where you're going to be putting in the number of children that you want to serve across the different program models. And so you are determining what that allocation is when you do that. So if you created a budget that has exceeded the amount that you proposed in that agency tab, then you're going to get an over allocated warning message. And that's going to, again, allow you to step back and see, hey, where can I cut costs to make sure that my budget is matching then my allocation on my agency tab. Another warning message that you can look out for will be the administrative costs. Any administrative costs that exceeds the maximum allowed, then it will also give you an error message. The non-federal match for federally funded programs like Head Start, Early Head Start, they could be insufficient if you don't put enough money in non-federal match. And so that's a warning sign to look out for. There is guidance within the RFP document to let you know exactly where you need to be, and it's 1/3 of the federal dollar. And so if it's not meeting the minimum threshold, then you could have a warning message. So any of those things can trigger a warning message, and just make sure that you're making the corrections and, you know, prior to finalizing that budget. So some of the template highlights, want to make sure that you're completing the budget template in the tab order that's presented. It's going to be really important for you to kind of follow that flow so that the template is working the most efficient for you. And also there is no cut and pasting allowed too in this template. That's another warning for you as far as the template highlight. The federal programs, they do require non-federal match. And so where our state funding doesn't, but just make sure that if you're applying for federal programs, that you understand what that non-federal match is. So this is just trying to give you an idea of what a warning message could look like. So in the agency tab, we want you to use the legal entity name that's required. So no nicknames. If your agency is better known as, well, they always call us kind of my short name. We want you to use the legal entity name, please. Also, this is the agency tab is going to be, again, the summary of proposed slots, which also then equals that revenue stream, right? And so we want you to be able to look at that agency tab and be able to determine the revenue that you're projecting based off the number of slots that you want to serve. So the administrative costs, kind of giving us the warning here. If you notice in parentheses, if it has the parentheses around the admin costs, it's saying that it's over the limit. And so you'll get an error message where the arrow is kind of pointing to the parentheses and the dollar amount that is being over allocated for administrative costs. But then you'll also see the glaring red. Your budgeted admin costs exceeds federal limitations. We also have an admin cap message for our state-funded programs as well on the same tab. So just wanted to kind of give you an example of what it would look like if you were to be over income with admin costs. So just be on the lookout for that. And with the non-federal match, the federally funded programs must be matched with non-federal funds. The match must equal 1/3 of the funds proposed. So in this instance, you see that the percentage of matching funds is less than 13%. So it says your matching fund is insufficient. So it has to be 1/3, which is about 33.33% of your federal amount or your federal proposal. So some budget instructions for the admin tab. Again, the admin tab is one of those tabs. It does not roll up into anything, but it's still important, right? Because we want to know more about your program. So we want you to be very specific, you know, when it comes to your administrative limits. Also, the administrative costs cover the organization-wide management functions of accounting, human resources, information technology, direction, and planning. The administrative costs, personnel and non-personnel that support your agency across all early childhood programs, it should be listed in this section. Each position budgeted in whole or in part with our funding streams must show 100% of the salary, even if it's paid with other sources of funds outside of early childhood. The total salary, column D, must equal the total allocation in column S. Again, it'll be more familiar to you, though, once the form is sitting right in front of you. So any shared services that you have within your organization, so every agency is required to have a cost allocation plan. So when costs are assigned to 2 or more programs, there should be a costing plan with a methodology embedded that tells us how you came up or how are you dividing costs. Also, just be mindful that the fringe rate is automatically at a default of 25%, but you can adjust that to fit your agency's needs. So other sources of fund tab. Again, we want you to disclose to us any other funding sources that are benefiting your early learning program. So if you are a grantee, please disclose that in the section. If you're also funded by another grantee, please disclose in this section. We want to know more about the programs and the funding sources that you have that are supporting your early learning programs. And also the miscellaneous Head Start only tab. So if you are applying for the Head Start program, you can indicate to us if you're interested in any of the supplemental positions. And it is pending the availability of funds. In the past, we have offered these 3 positions, the disabilities paraprofessional, and we've offered the health aid positions as well as the data management aides. If you're interested, you need to be able to provide the quantity and also a justification. In addition to the supplemental positions, the parent out-of-town travel, you can provide a proposed amount and a justification to support your desire. So the site tab. So the site tab, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. So they're alike until you start to put your information in the site tabs. So so budget each site separately, and that's important. It's important because we get an opportunity to see what community that particular site is in, what ward it's applicable to, and the license number of that facility in which you're showing us on paper, of course. We also want to ensure that no position within your program that's being proposed on our grants is going to be less than the minimum wage for the city of Chicago. So the minimum wage effective July 2019 is going to be $13 an hour. So we don't expect any positions to fall below that. And we also, with that same respect, we expect no position to also exceed the executive level 2 salary cap of $189,600. With that being said, we do want you to add the license numbers for each site, for each licensed site in the spreadsheet. We want you to add the number of children that you're proposing to serve at each site. Ensure that the total number of children being proposed across all sites, that it actually matches the agency tab. Each position must be listed separately, so there is no lumping of the same title. So just because I have a teacher position and maybe I have 26 teachers, I can't go ahead and just lump that in one line. We want to see 26 teachers listed separately. Use the drop-down list to select the titles of each position. If there is not a title for what you need, you can add the title. So for the classroom positions, we require classroom numbers to be added to the budget template. We're really interested in knowing that this has been thought about, that it's a well thought out process. For any positions that you're listing that are non-classroom positions, you can also enter in the classroom number field. You can put site or you can put agency. That's indicating that the position is either a site level position or it is an agency-wide position. So personnel and non-personnel must be cost allocated if more than one program is being proposed. So the budget template, the cost roll-up tab. The budget summary, so there is no data entry that's required under this tab. Everything is going to roll up to this tab, and this is pretty much a summary. This is a summary of all of your costs by different cost categories. And these are important. So if you look at the red that's being outlined, when you're entering your budget into the e-procurement system, this is the only section that's going to matter. So for subtotal category A, the red that's being indicated, those are the numbers that you're going to use in order to enter into e-procurement. If any one of your cost categories have a 0, there is instructions for the dollar budget. If a cost category is not budgeted and it's a 0, we want you to add $1 in iSupplier to ensure the line is reserved for later use. So again, the subtotal for category A is going to be entered in your submission for category A application. However, if you're applying for subtotal for the category B application, then you're going to actually use the subtotal dollar amounts that are listed under category B. So very important that you understand that those are the subtotal categories for the budget, and they should be applicable with the program in which you're applying for. So from the narrative, we want to make sure that the information from the agency and the cost roll-up, it will be auto-populated, right, in the narrative portion. So the numbers you won't necessarily have to do anything with. They should roll up. But all the yellow cells must be updated to reflect your proposed program. We want you to be considerate and mindful that you have to enter information to show your FTEs. Your full-time equivalent is needed for teachers, assistant teachers, home visitors, and all other positions. Provide a detailed description and justification for each cost category. This tab is password protected, so you will not be able to mess anything up, so to speak. So don't worry about hurting it. It is okay. It's pretty hardy. No lines can be added in this section, but you can adjust the height for the yellow sections. That way you can see more of what you're putting in. My suggestion to you would be that you write it out in a Word document, and then you can just copy it, paste it into the appropriate section.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
We're going to pivot now to selection criteria, but yes, I just want to remind everyone, if you want, you can type in questions now. So you don't have to wait till the end. So if you have some questions coming to you as we've gone through so far this webinar, and then in detail the budget pieces and category A and category B and all of that fun stuff, so please do go ahead and ask your questions. We will wait till the end, but we'll have them there, which will be helpful.
Rima, I think
yes.
Somebody has a question. Somebody asked for a bathroom break.
Oh!
Feel free at any point to get up and go to the restroom. It is okay, because we're going to make this available anyway, so you can go back and rewatch this.
I love it. Thank you.
So
yes, if you need to go to the bathroom, please do. This recording will be available, and you'll actually get a copy emailed to you. So that would be great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with selection criteria. So I'm going to go over the 4 selection criteria that'll be used in evaluating the proposals. So there's the strength of proposed program. And these are some of the things that we will be evaluating. So the applicant demonstrates a clear understanding of the target population and their needs and challenges. That the applicant clearly defines services to be provided directly or through partnerships, linkage agreements with other agencies, in alignment with the DFSS partnership framework. So the applicant clearly defines services to be provided that are appropriate to addressing needs of and achieving desired outcomes for the target population in alignment with the program requirements outlined in the Chicago Early Learning Standards. The applicant proposed program is supported by strong national or local evidence-based data and/or aligns with best practices for the relevant program models. It includes evidence of capacity to implement program requirements, curriculums, tools, and services with fidelity and is responsive to family and children needs. That the applicant has an effective approach to identifying and retaining program participants, including rules, regulations that reduce barriers, and policies that reduce barriers to participation, and that the applicant has demonstrated understanding of the community landscape, services, and context in which they are providing services. So second criteria, program performance outcomes and quality. And so under here, we're looking for the applicant demonstrates evidence of strong past performance towards achieving desired outcome goals and performance metrics and/or other notable accomplishments in providing services to the target population. And so if you're a program that has not been with DFSS before and there's no previous experience, the applicant provides a clear rationale for its ability to execute and achieve desired outcomes for children and families. The applicant has the relevant staff, systems, and processes needed to collect key participant and performance data and evaluate and manage performance. The applicant has experience using data to inform, improve its services or practices, and design program plan and evaluate efficacy of the program services with children and families. And the applicant demonstrates the ability to use data to inform and individualize delivery of educational and family support services to children and families, including coaching models to support staff in job-embedded professional development. And the asterisk here goes back to the very first one about performance. When appropriate, DFSS may use prior performance data already collected by DFSS or a relevant intermediary, as in an evaluator or a database. The third selection criteria, organizational capacity, the applicant has qualified staff responsible for program operations, oversight, management, fiscal oversight, and fundraising and grant management. The applicant has adequate systems and processes to support reporting and monitoring for government contracts, including sufficient access to technology to support the administration of the program requirements. The applicant has quality experience working with the target population and has relevant capabilities, partnerships, and/or infrastructure needed to serve this group. Again, if no prior experience, the applicant can articulate related experience. And lastly, the applicant's organization reflects and engages the diverse people within the communities it serves and is reflective of the children and families served. So the agency makes demonstrated efforts to elevate community representatives in leadership roles meaningful to the organization. And the final selection criteria, reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverage of funds. So fun stuff that you just went through with Tiffany. The applicant demonstrates reasonable implementation costs and funding requests relative to its financial and human resources, and the proposed budget supports the proposed scope of work or work plan. The program demonstrates ability to meet the minimum staff salary requirements and adequate staffing levels to meet caseload and supervision ratios in line with the size of the program and outlined program partnerships. Overall, the applicant is fiscally sound, as evidenced by the financial history and record of the organization, as well as audited financial statements or the equivalent from the current fiscal year. The applicant proposes a reasonable cost per person or per unit given the nature of the services provided and provides justification for the level of funding requested. And so this, we understand we've provided those proposed rates for you. But what can be certainly talked about is some of the blending opportunities. The applicant demonstrates ability to run program with available funding, including additional funding sources identified. The applicant has demonstrated an understanding of the relationship between funding sources and target population eligibility. And finally, the applicant leverages other non-city funds to support total program and administrative costs, for example, state, federal, foundation, corporate, and individual donations. So the deadline for applications are due on July 15, 2019 at noon. And I'm going to pass it off to Julia, who will talk even more about the noon deadline and so much more. So just give us a minute and we're going to get Julia kind of seated and getting ready to go. Hello. You know, actually, we've decided to do a little bit of change. We noticed that there are questions, and we thought for context connection, we thought we'd go ahead and answer the questions that have come up so far in terms of about the webinar. So we noticed that there is a question about RFP 2 is for center-based services or agencies and can apply for home visiting model only or combination of both center-based and home visiting. Okay, so for clarification's sake, let me see if I can understand this. If you're asking a blending question, then only center-based and family child care homes can blend funding, home visit and school-based, charter schools. But home visiting, you cannot blend funding. So PI and early Head Start cannot be blended for one child or family.
And then I kind of look at this question.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I kind of look at this question a little differently. And I kind of look at it as being, you know, within this application, can I go ahead and apply for a home visiting model and a center-based model within the same application?
Yeah.
And so ask for what you want. And so you're able to do that. You know, if you want to run, you know, different models, that's okay. You can ask for it within the same application.
Mm-hmm. So what potential service gaps led you to release the second RFP? That is gaps in terms of, can you move that arrow? Sorry, types of programs, locations, or both. So what I'm going to speak to is about our timeline. There were it was a high level analysis of the budgets that led us to the potential gap in the slots that we were looking for, as well as possible community areas. And it was a very high level. And what we decided was to release an RFP to have potential programs to fill gaps right away, because programming starts September 1st for this coming program year. If we waited until everything came back and we did much more deeper analysis, then we would have had to have released it much later, which would have pushed everything down the kind of road, and it would not have matched well with our program operations kind of time. September 2nd, I think, is the start date. So that's specifically that. Mm-hmm.
And then are the service gap areas identified in this
No.
RFP?
So the service gap areas are not identified in this RFP because we don't know them. So we, again, this is a high-level analysis, and because of timing, decided it would be better. So it's based on projected or possible gaps. We do not know the specifics.
There was a question about if you're a charter school and you want to apply for PFA, who do you need to contact? You need to call the Office of Early Childhood at Chicago Public Schools. Okay, and you need to go ahead and initiate the conversation there. So I would say, get a hold of Chicago Public Schools, their main number, and get transferred to the Office of Early Childhood, and they should be able to assist you.
I see there's a question about, I missed the beginning part of the presentation. If we have already applied, according to the letter, we must fill out the expansion part. Is that included in the iSupplier? So let me just clarify. If there's not an expansion portion, it is just that in what you're asking for, you're only going to ask for the expansion part. You do still need to complete the entire RFP. And then you would only ask, as an example, if you asked for 100 for category B, Head Start and PFA, but now you want to expand to 150, so 50 additional, you would go ahead and complete your RFP and only ask for 50 additional that are specifically totally additional. Did we get all of the questions?
Yes, we
did. Okay.
All right.
So don't forget to ask questions while Julia is doing her portion. Go ahead and write them down, and we're going to go ahead and have Julia start.
Great. So we've covered the program model. We've covered the budget template. And now we're going to talk about the nuts and bolts of how to actually make the application and the supports that are available to you as an applicant. I know that many of you have probably gone through this process once, so we've sort of tailored the presentation for kind of taking you to the next step in terms of sort of some slides and TA around that, but let's just get started. If you have questions about pretty much everybody who's already applied, you all have an iSupplier account already, and you don't need another one. Really, one iSupplier account is all anyone needs in their life. Within that iSupplier account, you can have many, many, many individual accounts, but for your agency only needs one iSupplier account. If for some reason you are a person without an iSupplier account, you would talk to the Department of Procurement at the e-procurement support at cityofchicago.org. But other than that, you do not need to talk to DPS. You really are going to either be talking to the Office of Budget and Management, which is OBM, or you can talk to me in terms of solving your technical problems or getting technical assistance in regards to anything that you are dealing with in the e-procurement environment. There are a lot of training materials specifically for delegate agencies that are available on the website I listed on this slide, which is through the City of Chicago website under the Department of Procurement Services. Additionally, I have put instructional PowerPoints that I've developed, and those are all posted on the CEL RFP number 2 alert. So if you open that page, scroll all the way down, You will see PowerPoints about how to get started in e-procurement, how to know if your application has been submitted, how to verify that. And then today we are actually going to go through the actual submission process, and I have some additional slides for you around that. So when you get the application, today you'll get the entire PowerPoint, you'll have those slides, some of those other things will be available to you. If you open those things up, you still are running into problems, call me. My number is all over the RFP and all over this PowerPoint, or call the OBM hotline for technical assistance at 312-744-0358. So getting started, we're going to go to the next slide. In terms of application tips, please, you have already registered into iSupplier. If you haven't, do it quickly. It takes a couple of days to get the whole thing started. Remember, when you're reviewing that the RFP narratives and application questions directly connect to one another and to the evaluation tool and to the selection criteria. So when you are looking, use the information we've given you in the RFP to help inform your answers in your application. If you have questions about what direction we're looking for, use this document to really help you. Most of the answers, or at least strong suggestions, are in the scope or are in the selection criteria. And you can call and call to verify what we're looking for, but mostly I see, especially when it gets to the end of an application period, it's clear that, and when we read applications, that it's clear that sometimes people really don't look at that RFP document, and that they've developed programs that are not always in good sync, and that unfortunately usually counts against them. So review that selection criteria, look at that scope. If you have questions, call Rima or Tiffany. You don't want to call me about program stuff, because I will just tell you to call Rima or Tiffany. And as always, use spell check, because spelling will be the bane of all of our existences. So in terms of application tips, this is late breaking news. I just heard from the Office of Budget and Management. If you are planning to submit 2 applications, one for category A and one for category B, then you will need to set up 2 user accounts within your organization's iSupplier account. But unlike the advice that we gave you, and I've been giving to other people, it has just been verified that you can use the same email address for each of those accounts. So you can set up an account for yourself, and you will put in your email address. But then you can also set up an account that's labeled, your favorite movie star, but you can put the same email address in, as the contact. You will need to put a live email address in there, because the e-procurement system is going to send you all the information about your application, any problems, any updates. All of the communications from e-procurement is going to go to that email, but it can in fact be the same email address. That being said, if you would prefer your emails, to separate the accounts and have separate emails, you can do that too. But I did want to make sure that people knew, if they were setting up multiple accounts to make multiple submissions, that it can have the same email address. And that's something that OBM just was able to test out and make sure that it worked.
That's wonderful news, Julia. I appreciate that clarification as well. And I'm sure that all of you do too. Maybe that might make it a little easier. But I just want to reiterate from what Julia said, we need 2 different user accounts.
Yes, you need
2 different usernames.
Yes, it can be Lucy and Ethel, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy. I'm dating myself. Anyway, in terms of working in the pre-procurement environment, as many of you know, there's a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. The system will not tell you if you are over the limit, unfortunately, so I really suggest that you use the word processing software of your choice to do those counts. You can submit your application. One nice feature to the e-procurement system is that you can submit your application, and if you need to amend it or pull it back, you can do so until the due date. You cannot decide on July 16th that there's something that you need to amend, it will not let you do that. But up until July 15th at 12 o'clock noon, you can pull it back, upload that thing or change that answer, and you can, and then resubmit. I would like to tell people to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early, because nobody does well when they're under the gun, and this system is no exception for seeming crabby when it's not. My experience with this system is that it doesn't crash, it has very few glitches. But that being said, if you're nervous and rushed, mistakes can happen. It's just better. It's just better to be able to, do things early. So I tell people save often and submit early, kind of like voting. So late applications, as always, I think everybody understands, late applications will not be accepted. The system doesn't allow us to accept it. If we couldn't accept it if we wish to, but we really don't wish to because that's not fair. And also when you're talking to the e-procurement hotline, make a note that it operates Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, as do I. Occasionally, if I'm out of town, I'll give people my cell phone number or my personal email, but for the most part, unfortunately, we all would like, you'll need to save your questions for standard business operating hours, not Sunday at 7, which is not a good time for us to get a hold of us. So here, and then we'll go to the next slide. So here we are at how do you make a submission? This is so exciting. So when you are ready to submit, you're going to start by saving your draft one last time, because I believe in saving often. And of course, you'll be submitting early, so I don't even have to talk about that. You're going to save your draft, which is either in the upper right or lower right-hand corner. You can save it really so many different places on the screen. And then you're going to hit continue, and that will bring you to the next screen. If you are missing information, which would be pretty much my life, you will be given an error message at the top of the page, or you'll be given, if you really do it right, you can be given multiple error messages. But if you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It's not working. Look for those error messages. Now, I find that error messages sometimes are a little cryptic, but I will say this, is that generally speaking, if you look at the error message, you read the error message carefully, there will be a key word that relates to a key term somewhere on the page. So it's kind of like a sort of weird word search. So in this case, it says you must quote on at least one line in the RFQ. If you go to the next slide, that would mean that you would have to go to the lines tab, and that then you would need to fill those out. You'd put ones in there, you would hit save, and then you could hit continue and submit again. Specific, and then here's another example, the quote value is required, a quote value is required for requirement first name. So I would personally find this to be quite cryptic, but let's break it down. So requirements in this case means your application, you'll see it's right there, I've circled it. The quote value, in fact, is your answer, and the first name is the requirement name. Now, I know in the case of this particular application, in that strengths section, that sort of first narrative section where you're really answering questions, there are 26 questions, and that 26th question doesn't quite appear. You have to click on like a not very big font to get to that 26th question. So if you go to submit and you get a quote value is required for requirement, and you need to go through those requirements and look very carefully to see that, click on that 26th question, which is in fact the question that asks for the narrative upload, for those of you who went through this process last time. I was unable to do a screenshot for that specifically, but if I can get one, I will definitely show. But just a heads up to those of you that might be something that you encounter in terms of an error message. So you're going to you'll fix your errors, you revert to active quote to go into the section that allows you to fix the error, and then you basically start again with the save, the continue, which will bring us to the next slide. So once your application is free from errors, you're going to save, you're going to hit continue, and that will put you in, when you're in an error-free zone, it will put you into what is reviewed to this review and submit phase, or this review and submit screen. You can tell that you are in this screen because it says on the top after create quote that you are in the review and submit screen. And so then this gives you an opportunity to, in fact, review and submit. So in this screen, you will be able to see everything that you have done. You will see your attachments if you have uploaded them, which I haven't in this particular screenshot. It will show you the answers to all of your narrative questions, and you can review those and make sure that they are exactly the way you want them to be. And it will show you the budget lines that you entered. At the bottom of that page, or that screen, you will come to the next screen. So here you go. So you're going to see, this is your last chance to review all your data. And then you're going to scroll to the bottom, and you're going to see what we have here.
Next screen.
The next screen, where you are allowed to put in an electronic signature. Now, in tiny red font on the very bottom, it says that indicates required fields is the little asterisks. Before submitting the response, please enter your name and title and accept the disclaimer by checking all above. So what you need to do is you actually have to enter your name and title first, and then you can check the box. I found out the hard way that it's kind of picky about this. It really wants your name and title first. No checking that box without a name and title. It won't work. So after you put in your name, your title, you check the box, you check that box that says submit, and then your life is perfect. So basically what you will get is you'll get a submittal confirmation screen. You will see here that it says that your application has been submitted. The e-procurement system will not send you a confirmation via email. I have instructions with screenshots on the CEL RFP website, the alerts website on the DFSS page, that goes through screenshots that how you can verify that you have been submitted. But basically, if you get that confirmation page that says literally that your application has been submitted, it has been submitted. If you are still worried, you can call and I will verify. We can all verify the submission. But if you don't see that page, if you don't get that confirmation page, you have not submitted. Something has gone wrong, and you need to go back and make sure that you have submitted. So that is all I have to say about e-procurement for today. You're more than welcome to call me if you have other questions. And if you have program questions, you can email Rima at one of two email addresses because she is so popular, or you can call her if you have e-procurement questions, or you're having glitches, or you want technical assistance, or you just are having an e-procurement moment that you'd like to share. You can call the e-procurement hotline. You can call me, or you can email me. And I really try to get back to everybody within 24 hours. I know the e-procurement hotline folks try to get back to people within 48 hours. And so there we go. I think we're going to go to questions now. So it says, our agency experienced significant technical difficulties with the RFP, getting kicked out of the system multiple times over a 2-day period. We were able to navigate and believe we understood the system, but repeatedly had to log in again from different physical locations and internet connections, losing information we had previously saved. What do you recommend if we encounter similar problems to this time? Well, I would have to say that what I recommend is not going to be really all that interesting, in that I am going to recommend that you save things very frequently. You would work in the internet. Sometimes some people have found that the e-procurement system operates a little bit better in Internet Explorer as opposed to Chrome. So I guess I would do that. And if you know that your system, that the interface between your system and the e-procurement system kicks you out a lot. It's just a lot of refreshing. And give yourself enough time to know, to do the work you need to do, assuming the worst out of these connections.
And I guess to take it a step further, what we also want to be able to do is, if you're experiencing these type of technical difficulties and you need to have a separate environment, maybe a separate space, you need to contact us at the email that was provided and let us know that that's your situation. And what I would say is, email us early, because if we can identify a space for you to go ahead and come into maybe one of our offices and go ahead and finish your transmission, then we're willing to do that if we know in enough time. Right now, we're really time crunched. Everything is very time sensitive, and so you can't wait until the last moment. If you need our help, you need to let us know now.
That's a very
So
good
we have
point.
a couple of labs that are available,
Yeah.
and that's something we can do.
That is a very good point, Tiffany. I can't emphasize enough how we can solve a lot of problems, and we're very interested and willing in solving these problems, but we can't do it 3 minutes before the application is due, or 15 minutes before the application is due when everybody is upset. That is not, we can hold your hand and we can be sad together, but but 15 minutes before your application or an hour before the application deadline is due, that is not the time to be solving problems. That is the time to be calmly submitting, or even better, you've submitted and you can have a nice cup of coffee and try to enjoy your morning. What kind of confirmation can we expect to ensure our application has been submitted? Well, the last screen that I gave you was that confirmation. That is the confirmation that you can expect. You do not get a confirming email. And then in terms of proof, you can call me and I can send you a screenshot saying that I've accepted it. I can verify it.
And to take it a step further, in order for you to check, we want everybody to be able to go back into e-procurement, and your status would change on your quote. It will go from a draft to an active quote.
Yeah.
So if yours is active, that means that you have submitted.
Correct. And to that end, I have actually uploaded a PowerPoint that talks about exactly that as part of the attachments in the RFP. So that is a PDF as a part of the attachments that sort of say, how do I verify, how do I check that my application has been submitted? So I hope that that is helpful.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of remind you guys that we have a computer lab here at 1615 West Chicago Avenue. We are more than happy to have our respondents come in. Let us know that you need the space, you need the time. We have no problem with allowing you to come in and use the space. We have the connections here, we have the computer equipment here. And if that's what you need to be successful, we would like to help you.
Yes. Okay.
So I don't see any other questions. But you're welcome to send questions to Early Learning, RFP, at cityofchicago.org, or to any one of us, and we're happy to answer them. I think we're going to go ahead and log off, and you will have available to you very soon the webinar and the PowerPoint and any attachments. Have a great day.
And submit early.
And submit early and save often.